Let me unmute myself. Hello, everyone. Hi, thank you for hopping on to my show. I am Julia Holly, owner of JH Creative, and this is my series on Filipino Hustle Fridays. And I have a special guest today. Thank you so much, Gil. I know you as Gil Payumo, for joining us and being on the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to see you. And yeah, I'm totally happy to be here.
I know, and for those of you who obviously might not know, Gil and I go way back to, is it sixth grade? Christopher Columbus or Juniper Sarah? I have been in a couple elementary schools and I'm already forgetting.
I can't remember. I think it's fair enough to say let's just go middle school.
Yeah. Yes. And that was, see, I'm already, I remember Westmore.
Yeah.
That's high school, but middle
Mm-hmm.
school was, what is the name? I can't even remember. I'm mixing it up with some of our rival schools, and I don't want to get it wrong.
So that just shows us if we did go to middle school together. I went to Fernando, so.
And you used to practically make fun of me the whole time. But it was a good group of friends, and I can't believe I had moved in the middle of my high school years to Fairfield, and that's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
where we lost touch. But thankfully, just by happenstance, my brother-in-law shared a video of Gil being a main chef, of being a co-founder of his restaurant, Senor Sisig. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I know him. What? When I was watching the video, it was the Munchies video. And I was like, oh my goodness, I remember he said he wanted to be a chef the last time I spoke to you. And so I was really excited. I just wanted to give it a chance and just reach out. And I think I used social media, thanks to social media, and reached out. And we were able to reconnect. And that's how we managed to get you up here on this show.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just a little quick background, because we're going to dive into the details eventually of your story, of how you got started and everything. I
Mm-hmm.
have some visuals for people so that y'all can see, and I have some video clips as well. So you wanted, I think you could tell me a little bit more. Like you probably weren't unsure about what you wanted to be, right?
Yeah,
Until,
definitely.
yeah. So how did you go from being unsure about your future to becoming wanting to become a chef?
Yeah, so I guess starting off in high school, everyone's thinking about what you should do getting out of high school, during this time. Um, the computer technology business and kind of that was starting up during the time when we were graduating high school. So automatically thinking that, hey, I want to make money. I want to make money after high school. I should lean into computer technology. And in the back of your head is like, how can I show my family and succeed financially and not be that cliche nurse or be in the medical field, being Filipino. So, of course, money is always what you're kind of thinking with
Right.
success. So I lean towards going to Heald, which is a computer technology school. Um, but in the back of my mind, I knew cooking was my passion. I think the only thing that I was thinking was, cooking school is like, $45,000 at the time. It's super expensive. How am I gonna, afford that? First of all, so I
Right.
went over to computer technology, which was a quarter of that price. Did that for a couple of years, and I wasn't feeling it. I was like, this is not what I want to do. As I stopped, went back to community college, and kind of just reevaluated myself and say, what do I really want to do? And the cooking thing came back, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna enroll myself to the California Culinary Academy here in San Francisco, and I'm just gonna do it. Do that full time, and kind of just kind of not necessarily rough it out, but just kind of feel it out and know that this is my passion and it's going to be all right. I'm going to enjoy going to school instead of kind of just dreading, you know, and thinking about the money. So I did that for 2 years, full time, and graduated from culinary school. Worked a couple restaurants for about 5 to 6 years, And my business partner now, Evan Cadera, he's my high school friend. He came up to me and kind of proposed me to a business proposition. Say, hey, I'm thinking about starting a food truck, but I'm not a cook. I want to reach out to you, Gil, because I know you've been cooking, you've been in the industry, and let's do something. And I don't know what to do. He was like, I don't know what to do. I want to do ramen. I want to do all Chinese food. I want to do all this stuff. And long story short, I just told him, hey, I got this sisig recipe, and let's do Filipino food. Let's do sisig tacos. And it kind of started from there, and it just blew up. That was around 2008. We opened 2010, and after that, we've just been going, pedal to the metal and kind of growing.
I love that. So even before the whole idea of fusion, Asian fusion really took off, y'all started implementing that kind of new trend, it sounded like.
Yeah, as for myself growing up, like just being in a Filipino family, you have all the being around food, first of all, is a big thing in your family. That's, how you celebrate and how you kind of welcome people in is with food. So, after family parties, you have all these leftovers, right? And sisig was that dish that me and my father used to make for the parties, and we would have leftovers, and we would do different things with it after. For me, I would make tacos, I would make quesadillas because I love Mexican food. So it kind of organically kind of started from there. Like, hey, I have this dish that's just like people don't know about, and people don't have no idea what the flavors are, and even Filipino food. And I wasn't really thinking about the masses, just implementing that dish into different kind of things. So that's always been in me, just playing around with food. So that's how organically and how it kind of came together. And Evan coming to me and saying like, "Hey, let's do something." And I was just first I was hesitant because I had a career ahead of me. For him to pull me out and say like, "Don't you want to be your own boss?" That was kind of like the highlighted thing that I kind of took out of this whole experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the videos that I happened to see, and I think that was the first one, there's a couple of them. I know there's one on your story that captures it really well. I hope this is the right one, but I'm just going to play a few of this because I know this is one of the longer ones.
If anyone's gonna ask me what's your number one protein, I'm gonna say pork all the way. Everyone has a different preference, but we got a pig on the truck for a reason.
Hi, my name is Gil Payumo. I'm co-owner and chef of Senor Sisig.
Hey, I'm Evan Cadera. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Senor Sisig. Senor Sisig is a Filipino fusion food truck out here in the Bay Area, California. We fuse Filipino flavors, with sisig being the main component, into burritos, nachos, rice plates, tacos.
That was 2010. Now, it seems like every year we kind of grew.
We do San Francisco style burritos, man.
You have your starch, you have your protein, you have a sauce on it, and it's something easy to eat. I kind of look at it like a battery pack, like when you're just hungry as hell, you get a burrito and just recharges you.
So sisig traditionally is made out of pork's head, traditionally like the snout and the ears, and it came from a province in the Philippines called Pampanga. Over the years, sisig has evolved, and so people do it in different ways, and what we do here, we use pork shoulder.
So we're here at the commissary in the Bayview. The process over here is basically to cut it about a 1/4 inch. So I got a couple ingredients here. We have the vinegar, soy sauce, and we also have some of the pineapple juice. So we got salt over here and sugar, minced garlic, black pepper, and red chili flakes. You get different kind of flavors from the marinade, from the citrus taste from the vinegar. You get the depth of the soy sauce and the saltiness. You get the spice of the red chili flakes, and the garlic is gonna hit you after that. Even in the beginning, we didn't have a prep kitchen. I had my parents' house. And you gotta start from somewhere. Day one, the marinating process was taking a pork shoulder, cutting it by hand. That's just a regular cutting board and a knife. And again, time consuming, inconsistency, and refrigerated for 48 hours. And with this new process, we don't have to do the 48 hours. We can do it in a half an hour, and you can do 300 pounds at one time.
So I was born in San Francisco, but I was raised in Daly City. Daly City was predominantly Filipinos. My mom and dad decided to open up a Filipino convenience store, like kind of a mini mart.
Pampanga is known as the culinary capital of the Philippines. So that's where the best food comes from, is what they say. So that's where his father and his ancestors are from. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and in my junior year, I transferred to a school in Daly City. When I transferred there, Gil was one of the first people I met. Our families were both immigrants that came to this country and started their own businesses. And my dad came from Japan, and first thing he did was become a chef out here. I'm half Japanese, half white, so I'm not even Filipino. A lot of folks think that we're both Filipino, and when they realize that we're not both Filipino, they're like, oh, I get it. You're Mexican and he's Filipino. Senor Sisig. I always loved to eat, but I didn't have the passion to be a chef. My dad would always try to teach me how to become a sushi chef. This is how you roll this. This is how you cut the fish. And I was interested, but not as interested as like, how much does this cost and how much are we selling it for?
Yeah, so they were about to bust an ad out, thanks YouTube. But I figured that captured a lot of your story.
Yeah.
So that was really, I loved watching that whole thing. I was just so excited. And I'll pull up my slides again because we're gonna just skip through a few that I had put together. But we're gonna talk about reeling it back in. We'll talk more about your story and Senor Sisig, like how you guys started that brand. And I'd love to dive into our passion for supporting the Filipino community and our culture. Sure. We talked about, there's several videos where we can share eventually too in the comments after we post this video. But one of the things I wanted to show is a picture of your family, and of course a picture of you as a chef. that was in the video too. I was like, oh, I have to grab this photo. So yeah, tell me a little bit more too. Now, it sounds like he was inspired by the whole idea of the food truck concept, and then he reached out to you. You told him about the Sisig recipe and everything. When you started, it was 2008. You mentioned, and that was really like right after the financial crisis. Like it must have been really stressful to start a business after that, and in Silicon Valley area. It's expensive out there, and I know all the stories, and I hear everything about trying to survive living out there. How have you guys managed to get through all that?
Well, I guess timing and everything. Nothing's perfect, right? Timing is not always planned out correctly. I think it was more of a feeling. This is around 2007, 2008. Evan, my business partner, was just leaving his job also because he was frustrated on, having no control and no growth in his career. And he traveled a lot. So he was going to, overseas. He was actually in the music industry. So he was traveling, seeing a lot of food, a lot of different ideas. And he went to LA for a couple of weeks because he was doing some shows over there, and he saw this food truck, Kogi, which is Roy Choi's food truck, and he was inspired by it. So, and I think that's how it started. It's like, hey, if this truck could have a line, 3 o'clock in the morning or in the afternoon, and with this kind of concept, we could do something like that. And I think that shows that something like that is kind of separate from the economy, because it's something people got to eat, right? So food is always going to be there. Prices may not, seem reasonable at times, but people have to eat. So I think it started with that. And once he came back and proposed that plan, I think I was 50-50. To be honest with you, it's nothing. I didn't throw everything away right when I heard that kind of idea from him. I was a sous chef at Marriott, and I was, climbing that corporate ladder, and I was fine with it. I kind of had things planned out, and that was kind of my way of looking at stuff. Things are planned out. I'm going to do this in 5 years, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to be an executive chef. But he kind of pulled me out and and said, like I said, he said, are you happy? You know, and I looked at myself, I'm like, not really. You know, I'm not that happy because, you know, there's certain things I want to do. For example, if you're in a big company, there's only so much you can say because there's that corporate ladder that has to kind of control everything that you're doing. So I think that, again, was the forefront of the life-changing time, and it turned out, you know, to be a great change for me. And I think that alone, that idea right there, was just enough for me to kind of take that chance. And that's what it is, taking that chance and not knowing if you're going to succeed or if you're going to fail, but you'll never know until you try.
And that's the thing. I think that's what really helped, is that you have a business partner who pretty much like put the entrepreneurial mindset into you, right? Sometimes it's what holds people back, I think, is the fear of you know, what the unknown and failure or anything that might happen. But it's really impressive that y'all took this route, and it's been almost 10 years now. No, 11 years. Yeah. And it's amazing how much success that y'all had grown to. Now 6 food trucks, right? And a couple locations.
Yeah, so we were up to 6 food trucks. This year we sold 2 food trucks because of you know, locations were kind of cut off during the pandemic. But but now we have 2 brick and mortars, one in San Francisco and one in Oakland. So 4 food trucks, 2 brick and mortars, and planning to expand even more.
That's so exciting. Yeah, so that's a perfect segue into this next part, which is, you know, when y'all decided, okay, you were going to do this, did you start with an actual brand, like professionally? Did you invest in that first, or how did y'all go through that process?
So all from the concept itself, right? We wanted to highlight Sisig. You know, the first discussion we, Evan, was like, what should we call it? Sisig Station? Should we call it SF Sisig? We really wanted to highlight that brand. And being in the Bay Area, being in San Francisco, like, what works? You know, there's just like a page or 2 of like names, and we're just crossing it out. But I think one day, I think Evan's fiance said, gave him a birthday present. Basically, he said, I wanted a food truck for his birthday. I think that's what he asked his fiance for. And this is in the time when we're kind of thinking about it. We didn't buy the food truck yet, so she gave that food truck to him. It was like a little toy food truck, and put on the cards like, to Senor Sisig, this food truck's for you. And it kind of clicked, because it was like she was really calling him like Mr. Sisig, because we were just continuing to talk about it, and it just stuck. And I think everything kind of molded together from the concept being Senor, and that's kind of the Latin Mexican kind of branding to it, and the Sisig is there. So it worked out, like, you know, perfectly, and it just fell in our lap.
I love that too, and it ties in the Filipino aspect with Sisig, and it is a very unique dish. Not everyone knows or is super familiar with that. So I thought that was brilliant, and I love the brand. I love what y'all decided to do with it, with the colors. Sure. Did you guys use Bay Area colors as a factor, and also a little bit of the Filipino national vibe? What made you guys pick the colors?
So exactly what you're saying. I think that was our concept, using the Filipino colors, but having that Bay-ish or you know, vibe, the San Francisco vibe. Yeah. And we worked with a close friend of ours that works for the San Francisco Giants. That he is the graphic designer for Heritage Nights. Ooh. So he kind of helped us of like, you know, take all our ideas and put into this concept. It's like, hey, we want to be like very, you know, Frisco, very Bay Area, but we want to have the Filipino colors. We want to have this pig, and I was like, I want the knives to be in there. And you know, he put it together. This logo right here is actually our second kind of logo. Our main logo is the one on the truck with just the pig cartoon pig head right there, with the 2 knives. And that's again, cool. Using that to evolve for different kind of, you know, branding or marketing, but keeping that our highlighted kind of brand. And it's been working really well.
I think that's very important to bring out too, is that sometimes restaurants don't invest in their brand as much. They can have brilliant food, which is great, but it takes a lot to get that buzz out of there that, oh, it's a hole in the wall, the food is awesome. But sometimes the brand also really helps with the first impression, right? And it also helps you with building a culture with that strong brand, in addition to the great food and experience that y'all provide.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So speaking, I mean, I have pictures of the food. My sister was able to go out there to visit ever since we saw that video. And this is like a couple pictures that she took, one here and then one here. She said it was so good, the ube horchata. So what made you want to pick those flavors out of all of the different types of beverages? Do you guys have anything in addition to that, or that's kind of like your signature drink?
So right now that's our signature drink. I mean, this is something that we kind of started with the ube horchata last year, and we were just doing in little, like, you know, clear cups with lids that we were just serving it from our restaurant. But with the ube flavor, you know, not only it's trendy right now, I think it's a good flavor when it mixes in with something like a horchata, because horchata has like the rice, the cinnamon, the vanilla, and it has that color factor. So that's it just, regardless of anybody that knows what ube is, they're going to be like, what's that purple drink? I want to taste that, and I want to know what that is. Even not knowing what ube is, people want to post it, you know, people want to like take pictures with it, and they're, you know, then that's what, you know, this generation now is great when it comes to marketing, is because you kind of take a picture of it, then you taste it. Not to say that, you know, you have a leverage on, you know, you could make mediocre food, but it just gives you that different aspect of how you could market your business, but also support it with great food, and know what you're putting in there makes sense with your marketing, and what makes sense with your branding. When it comes, even with our labeling, our logo, everything ties in well. So it's a lot of things that we think about internally, and how we could kind of bring out items. It's like, we just don't want to bring an item out just because, you know, we have to have something that ties into our culture and ties into our brand.
I love that. And it has to do, I think, I mean, it's smart, because sometimes businesses don't even think about like the content of the menu, or like what can start a new conversation, what will spread the word of mouth. And like you said, you want it to be attractive or something unique and humorous, or kind of different. And here, let me pull up. I think there's some more pictures. Oh yeah, I love horchata. That was one of my favorite types of drinks. And it looks like with the freckled calamansi, that looks so good and refreshing. Oh my gosh. So is it kind of like a sweet agua fresca type of thing with calamansi?
Yeah. So if people don't know what calamansi is, it's native to the Philippines. It's more of a sweet limeade kind of taste to it. So basically it's like a honey lemonade. Then we have fresh strawberries in there that mixes it in, that turns it kind of, you know, reddish color. And it's just a perfect touch to kind of smooth out the flavor notes when it comes to that drink. And it looks great too, right? So we're in the process of bottling that also right now.
Oh my gosh.
I might have to send you some.
Seriously, if you can. I need to, I'm overdue for a family trip out back to the Bay Area. So when things start to open back up, I know restaurants are generally open and operating at a certain percent, right? Back there, hopefully.
Yeah, it's 50% right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
We had talked about too, and I know this is probably not something that should be public yet. And if you don't want to disclose it, totally understand. But I could see people wanting to franchise this type of model. And, you know, just because you've done such a good job with the brand, the recipes, this something could easily replicate somewhere else, because it almost gives someone like a Filipino entrepreneur who wants to grow something similarly and not start from scratch, when you know there's a success behind this model. I'm guessing that's something that might be in the works, if not definite.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a discussion with us of franchising. And I think it started probably year 4 of just talking about it, but always saying like, you know what, that's not our focus right now, but we have people contacting us, you know, either it's from the Philippines, from Canada, from you know, parts around the country, of asking us, are you interested in franchising? And I think our instant answer was no, not right now. And just for, you know, on our side, the reason why we're saying that, and to this day, I think we're more open to franchising, but we really want our infrastructure to be strong. Our foundation is what we want to kind of always work on before we grow. I think larger, you know, we're a corporation, but once you get into franchising, we want to make sure everything is implemented about, you know, either procedures or the product, and how can we envision this product. Say we have a location in Texas, how would we control that and not take the food quality, take a hit on the food quality?
Right.
And that's what you get with growth. You know, it's growing pains, but we're so invested in our brand that, you know, it's about growth, but also doing it the right way, not just doing it for the dollar. And if you look at it in that way, you're going to succeed for not only 10 years, 20 years, or even, you know, however you want to succeed till. And that's our focus, is not to move too fast, but be very careful of how we're implementing kind of what our growth, you know, what is our staple location that we want to brand it from. Say, is it, you know, 99 in Valencia? Is it in Oakland, in Webster Street? Like we're still trying to figure that out, because we want that to be streamlined and thought out, not just, you know, 6 locations that are looking differently, and food quality is not. We don't want a customer saying like, oh, it's good, but it's not as good in San Francisco. It's not the same because I used to live there. We want people to say like, hey, I moved here, I moved to New York, and they have a Senor Sisig in here, and it's just as good, and it feels like I'm at home. So I think that's our focus when it comes to growth and franchising.
That's really good. Yeah, because that's the trick, I think, because it really, like you said, quality there's the temptation, and there's growth. You might get some financial wins in the short term, but it quality can go down as it happens. So I totally get that. And this is one of your restaurants, right? Is this one of your first physical locations? I really like the artwork that y'all did here.
Yeah, this is the one in San Francisco on Valencia Street. This is our first brick and mortar location. We opened, I believe, last year in November. This was an old cafe that is in, you know, one of the busier parts in San Francisco. And this is the back area patio. We have some local artists that have been working with us with our shirts that hand painted the back mural behind me.
Yeah.
And on the other side, we definitely got another mural that was painted a couple of months ago during the pandemic that represents our growth also. So we like to work with a lot of local artists and then have a lot of hand painting stuff that is put on our restaurants.
Yeah, I can see it behind you. If you're in the same location, that's the San Francisco location, or it's a different one that has a similar mural?
No, this is the San Francisco location.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And in my next photo here, you also have ube yogurt, frozen yogurt?
Yeah, so that's the same ube horchata recipe, but this is in a soft serve version, but we also use buffalo milk, which it's something that's more dense and savory when it comes to soft serve.
I've never
so
heard
we've
of
been having
buffalo milk. That's buffalo milk, you just said?
Yeah, I mean, people kind of get freaked out about it, but it's just like it's just like heavy cream, but you know, from a buffalo, right?
That sounds amazing. I think it's just, I mean, I think you have so many, that's the thing I miss from San Francisco. You know, even when I moved to SoCal, I missed a lot of the different varieties of foods. Just within a few miles, you can just go anywhere and explore and get familiar with other cultures. So I'm guessing that you have resources and access to those kinds of things like buffalo milk.
Yeah, and these are local people too that, you know, and it's become a trend. I think only a handful of restaurants use buffalo milk for their soft serve. And in the Philippines, they use buffalo milk a lot in the in like
Wow.
small provinces, as instead of whole milks from a cow, it's from buffalo milk. And some people in the Philippines just have it with like buffalo milk and rice, and that's kind of their meal for the day. So there's a lot of things
Wow.
that kind of ties into the concept, not only using a great brand, but there is like history when it comes to the ingredients we're using.
That's fascinating. That is so cool. I didn't even realize there was a tie into the Filipino culture with that too. I thought it was
Yeah,
just being more bougie and Silicon Valley, San Francisco.
I mean, we're trying. It's a mixture of both. So we're definitely trying to kind of like be different, and also utilize what's here in the Bay Area.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I would love to dive into that conversation about Filipino culture too.
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, so did you also try to get more inspiration for your menu? Did you travel a little bit? Did you go anywhere else and go back to the Philippines and see if you could come up with some new unique recipes?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a family, we did go to the Philippines at least every 3 years. So I would take kind of different styles of sisig or even Filipino food and see how is it different from over here. Of course, it's different because that's like the mainland, and everyone has like a bunch of takes on different dishes. Over here, it's kind of a quarter of that or even less. So just looking at sisig itself was going to like the strip malls, people's houses, um, even going to friends of friends' houses to see how they would make a sisig, and kind of develop more knowledge when it comes to that. At the end of the day, I know that I wasn't taking anything from there. I was just getting kind of seeing what their style was, because this is more like a San Francisco style sisig. So um, this is not something that you would find in the Philippines like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, my business partner went to the Philippines about 3 or 4 years ago, and he went to this bar in the Philippines, and they had sisig on the menu. They said like traditional sisig with the pork face and the ears and the snout, and they had a San Francisco style sisig, and that kind of blew his mind, because he asked the waiter, "It's like, what is San Francisco sisig?" And this is in Manila, in Makati. So it's the main kind of, there's like trendy stuff over there. So he asked the waiter, he was like, "What's San Francisco sisig?" And he's like, "Well, it's actually inspired by this food truck in San Francisco." He didn't say the name, but he just basically said, "Yeah, it's a meteor version of sisig, and it's in the US." So I think that just shows what the impact of our brand and our food kind of did worldwide.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did that make you feel great?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely gave me goosebumps, and it like made me like not feel content, but more kind of I think energized to do more things, and grow our business, and know that all this stuff we do in the Food Network, that's kind of showed nationwide and worldwide, it makes a big difference. And just word of mouth, if your auntie that's in the Philippines are hearing about it, or your uncle, or whatever, just spreading that word, because they want to talk and gossip about who they know, and what's going on in the US. I think that's better than anything else, because it makes people kind of tune in and talk about something.
Yeah, and reunite with an old high school friend.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it's pretty amazing, all the success that you've accomplished. I'm so proud of you. And as far as like just, I'm so proud of our Filipino culture, honestly. And I feel like I've been
Mhm.
enlightened recently. And that's one of the reasons why I started this series, to start highlighting Filipino entrepreneurs. And
Mhm.
not only just Filipino entrepreneurs, like really the ones who actually, maybe it's our generation where parents came here, immigrated, and then we grew up, excuse me, benefiting from our parents raising us here, and I'm really thankful. Shout out to the OGs.
For
but
sure.
as, but yeah, no, and then now taking our culture, our generation to the next
Mhm.
level. I'm seeing so many people make it and be successful, and so I would love to highlight more folks doing this. Now with you, and I know we've had this conversation too about like Filipino
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, with all of this publicity that you are getting and people are talking and probably reaching out to you and things like that, because you've been on Food Network, you've been featured with local news and and even major blog sites, and you probably have more coming. So
yeah,
I'm guessing like you're probably part of that group that is helping empowering the community. What have you seen locally over there in San Francisco area? Because it's like it's the highest population, I think, of Filipinos in the country.
yeah. So a lot of it is like, I think you said it well by, our generation, kind of not only entrepreneurs, but, Filipino Americans kind of stepping out of their comfort zone and speaking out. I think it starts there. Growing up, I think as a Filipino American and kind of respecting your parents and your elderlies, it's more so of a thing like don't speak unless you're spoken to. So that's a big thing, and it's a cultural thing. And growing up, that's all, you're very, timid. You don't want to speak out your emotions, or you don't want to like talk it out because that's not what you're taught. I think growing up and getting a little bit older, I think everyone's coming out of their shell. If it has to do with careers, it has to do with your kind of voice, and saying it's okay to be like, hey, this is not what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to be a chef. I want to be. It could be a garbage man. It could be, it could be a consultant like Julia. But I think with all that, being, Filipino, then you go back to respecting what your parents did and what they sacrificed and understood where they came from, and take that with you now, but actually have a voice and say, I want to be my own person, and I want to support Filipinos and kind of join these groups here in the Bay Area. There's a lot of Filipino groups like Filipinos Feed the Front Lines, Filipino American groups here in San Francisco that kind of come together. Even the Filipino channel here, there's a big presence over there, and I love doing segments with them because it really shows how much we could support them and kind of be a voice when the younger generation was kind of something that, people never kind of spoke out to what they believed in. So I work with a lot of companies, a lot of organizations here, if it's during the pandemic, before the pandemic, and to this day, a lot of things are being, I think, incorporated in our business. Whatever we can do, that whatever our followers could kind of like support us and what we're doing, not only with the Filipino American following, but just in general, just helping people out and know that we're here to kind of support everybody.
That's awesome. That is great. I really hope, and I really think, I mean, we're just kind of like at the tipping point now where we're probably going to see more of that, where we see Filipinos actually being more open about success, and just there's so many that we have no clue about that I'm sure, like I didn't even realize for the longest time an executive chef to multiple presidents was Filipino. And I'm sure you know her, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So that I was like, what? And I just happened to stumble upon an article. So I would love that we would, help connect the dots and empower one another. And I'm glad you brought up our parents too, because it's really true. I am very thankful. It's like it's come full circle for us. Now that we're parents, we kind of know, like, oh my gosh, what did we put our parents through?
I know, it's crazy.
Like, how did they manage to survive living in the San Francisco Bay Area during the 80s, right? And I heard it was really tough times then. So and your parents like had a shop, right? They ran their own shop?
I think starting when I was in second grade, my parents opened a grocery store. It's like a small mini mart that was in Pacifica it was up the street from our house in Daly City. We opened that when I was in second grade, and it was a family business. And, I spent most of my childhood there and most of my teen age years over there. Like, people would say, hey, do you want to, play outside? And no, I got to be at the store stocking boxes. And I used to hate it. Or like, do you want to go play basketball? I was like, maybe a little bit later, because, I got to go meet my mom at the store and kind of help her out. And I definitely hated it. So, looking back at it now, I think that's where I got my entrepreneur kind of blood flowing, I got it from my moms and my parents, and and just kind of seeing what they went through, what they did, the reason why they were, the reason why they were so adamant of me kind of helping them out. Not only it was cheaper, right? They didn't want to hire anybody, but it just showed me the responsibility and what it takes to survive here in the U.S. And they were just, they came here around, I think, the early 80s, late 70s, and made it happen. My parents, my dad was the first one that came here to America, and he came with his 5 brothers. And my grandparents, all in one house.
Oh my gosh. And that's like my parents' story.
I mean, it's like a cliche already for a first, for your parents or any Filipino American parents that came here, is like, you have to start somewhere. And it's during that time, people are just trying to look for jobs. My dad said the first week he was eating Big Macs every day because it was like cheap, and you got to do that stuff. You got to start somewhere. And I'm totally grateful for that, and even with my mom opening a business for almost 24 years, that just shows you the commitment and kind of the grind that she had to go through to put us in good places, put us not only like in, great school, a great, home, and just, kind of like setting that path for us. And that's what we want to do as parents, is setting that path. But I think on the flip side is like, we want to be more open and talk to our kids and see how they feel, instead of kind of a one-way street. And that's the beauty of being a parent. And, the more I talk about being a parent, the older I feel. But, that's another story.
I know. Don't we feel like we're in our 20s still forever?
We want to feel that way, right? Because we are, right, Julia?
Yeah, no, we are. No, but it's really true. I think like our generation especially is going through that. We're very thankful for what they've done for us. I'm thankful that my dad, there's something to the Filipinos that have resilience in them, especially in teaching our generation, at least the ones who were forced to do things we didn't want to do, like with your parents. And just seeing that, it wasn't easy for them at all. And even having to raise a child in a different culture and then having that culture clash. I know I was very hard on my parents in my teenage years, but now looking back, I'm just so thankful for everything that they've done. And now that we have to face our own, I guess our consequences with our own children, but hopefully we can instill, and I try to mindfully, same thing where with my kids, I want to spend time with them. It's, I wasn't raised this way, but I'm going to try, my best to just put work aside, and spend time and have quality time with the children and things like that. So same thing, totally agree. Same thing. No, well, thank you so much for hopping on with my second episode. Maybe you'll come back in a few years and there'll be like 10,000 followers.
No, for sure. And I just want to congratulate you on your success, and it's great to see you. And definitely we're going to keep in touch. And anytime you're around back home in the SF Bay area, please give me a call and we'll grab a burrito too.
For sure. And for those of you who are on or watch this recording, check out their social media and their website. You can definitely order online, and especially they do catering. So check out all the videos. They are so entertaining, and just go check them out and try them out. If you're in the Bay Area, I highly recommend. I'm sure y'all have already heard of them and been to one of their trucks. So for those of you who have not been to the San Francisco Bay Area, which I would say, Chrissy, you should go check them out since she's going to visit them in a month or so. So anyways, that's mainly it. Please follow me on social if you haven't already. And thank you for stopping by. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, guys.